Brad is joining us now from Cali. Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you boys?
Why just all right?
We don't really want to get into it. I'm feeling. I'm just battling some physical stuff, but I'm delighted to be out here in 64-degree Oxnard.
How worried should Cowboy fans be that Zach Martin is not there?
I think they should be worried about the health of their children. Knowing Zach, he is not going. He's not the type who is going to miss playing time. In my opinion, we can always be surprised. I believe that he wouldn't be not here if he didn't feel strongly about whatever his grievance is. If you talk about, like, Saquon Barkley's another example. I'm not going to play. Now, Zach hasn't said he's not going to play. I think he's trying to make a statement and get everybody's attention in the front office. But you at this stage of a career that is still incredibly productive, you just don't walk away from the kind of money he's already making. Now, that doesn't mean you're happy, and you would like him to be happy. But I wouldn't. I mean, he's not going to play any preseason games anyway. At least he wouldn't for me. So you'd like him to get some practice. If he gets 2 weeks of practice, I'm pretty sure he's healthy. And so if he gets a couple of weeks of practice, I'm fine. I'd love to see him. I love hanging around him, but it's a business, Sean. You know, it's professional football, and so they got to take care of the business part first, but I don't think that's the reason to lose sleep.
Before we watch any of the practices, what would be your best guess on the opening day starting offensive line?
Presuming everyone's presence and good health.
Yes.
My answer is somewhat colored by what I think ought to be the case. And whether they think the same thing or not, I don't know. I know Mike Solari, the new offensive line coach, he was actually here the first time under Landry for a while. But I haven't had a chance to talk to him about who he thinks are the best five. But if it's me, I'm putting down Tyron Smith at left tackle, Tyler Smith at left guard, Biotish at center, Martin at right guard, and Terrence Steele at right tackle.
And your reason for the left side would be what?
Tyron's still a really good player when he's healthy. He didn't look great playing right tackle last year, certainly in the San Francisco game, but, I mean, they were desperate, and that just, to me, shows what kind of a team player he is. I'm not worried about Tyler Smith handling multiple positions. I think the one thing, well, we learned a lot about him last year, but I think one of the things we learned is that he's really bright. He's a very intelligent guy, and he's very adaptable. And so, to me, you can put him in at left guard. I would, frankly, if it was me, I'd probably play him at both positions during practices and preseason. And then if I feel that my best team is Tyron Smith at left tackle, I'm not afraid to put Tyler at left guard. And if I have to move him back to left tackle at some point, I don't think it slows him down one bit. I think he's just fine. I really think that's, to me, the best five on paper, given good health and everyone's presence. So the thing that really I am most interested to see when they put pads on, which I guess might not happen until next week, is the depth, the backup people, the guys like Farniak and Ball and Waletzko. I'm interested. I really liked what Waletzko was doing before he got hurt in training camp last year. These young guys, I want to see them play and see what kind of depth they can develop. But to start against the Giants, again, all those other factors being equal, I think those are the best five, because Tyron Smith can still play.
Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys, joins us here at 105 through the Fan. What was the offseason storyline that circulated that annoyed you the most?
The off-season storyline that circulated that annoyed me the most. I guess, RJ, I always try to answer the first thing that comes into my head. And so I guess that would be that Prescott just is an interception machine and can't play or can't win. That annoys me. I mean, to me, if you just look statistically at the year he had last year, it wasn't good, and it was an outlier. And also, he didn't have very much. And we saw it in capital letters with bright lights after Pollard got hurt in the playoff game. He had one guy to make plays. That's not enough. And if it was me, I'd have added even more wide receivers. But I do think I'm interested to see Gallup, because all they had last year was a guy wearing number 13. They didn't have Michael Gallup. So if they do now, and Cooks is as advertised, then then I think guys who were like Noah Brown, who's a really nice football player, and I think you can use guys like that to help you win, but he can't be your third or fourth receiver. And so now, if I think this is a guy like Semi Fehoko has a chance to make his career now, show he can be Noah Brown from special teams and a better receiver. There's some interesting guys like that. All of that factors very much for me into the evaluation of the quarterback, and I think the quarterback can win. So I guess that would be what annoyed me the most.
What changes do you think will be there with Mike McCarthy calling the plays?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not going to pretend to be smart enough to answer it, but I think we can only answer that going on what he says, which includes things like wanting all the receivers to have more ownership over the entire route tree. Everybody know what everybody else is trying to do, which enhances what they're supposed to do. And I think that is a part that's pretty intriguing. He said when he announced that he was taking it back over, we want to run the ball and play defense. I think they did run the ball. And as much as I love running the ball, I still think you have to, and Babe Woffenberg says this all the time, you got to throw it to score in this league. And it's just not the same league that it was 20 years ago. So they obviously have to be more efficient. They've got to cut down on the interceptions. That, to me, is McCarthy's number one deal. And I think there were a lot of factors for Dak. The time he missed, now he comes back. I think he's maybe trying to hit a few 6-run homers. Certainly with what he had running around in front of him, you try to maybe do too much, and that's not a recipe for success. So I think there's all those intangible factors that have a chance to make them better. But Mike's put a lot of he's put a lot on the line. He's put a lot of his own prestige and I think future here, at least here, into saying I can fix this. And but as Shan, he'll tell everybody, if give me $1 this week, we have the big press conference to start here coming up at 10 o'clock Pacific time, and then he'll talk almost every day. So I'd just like to have $1 for every time he says the word install, because that's what they're going to be working on, putting things in. And so it'll be New York before we start to get a real glimmer of what it is that he's trying to do. But I mean, this is all on him now, as far as I think probably the ownership's concerned.
You mentioned there, Brad, the press conference today where they'll be all up there and taking questions for, goodness, they may be up there for an hour. What are you, outside of something urgent like, the question around Zach Martin, what are you most interested in hearing about from Jerry, Steven, and Mike today?
They'll be asked questions about Mike's future. They'll be asked questions about Dak. Bobby, as silly as it sounds, and I have not seen it yet because we were running around. It got dark, so I haven't seen it. But this all this fuss over this tent that they built in front of the wall, that's a lot of hubbub for a wall, for a tent. And so I don't know if it's just a tent or a structure, but there's been enough conversation about it that, knowing, Jerry, I think that I'm interested to see if that's really something or if it was just something that for people here to talk about. And, contracts always, how are you going to handle, and that's part of the Zach question, but how are you going to, get Diggs and Lamb taken care of so you have cap room to make sure you are good with Biotish and start on Parsons next, all of that stuff. That's all part of the Dak question and Zach Martin question. But I'm always interested to hear what they say about that.
What's your solution for the running back market problem?
That's just, I don't know. That's attitudinal and cyclical. And so the way the game's gone, the way the rules have changed, it's pretty clear that if you keep signing running backs to the contracts that Zeke signed and Gurley, remember Gurley the year before him?
Yeah.
And anybody who was paying attention could see that was the forerunner. Gurley signed that deal with the Rams, and then you could say he will not live out that contract. And a lot of people said the same thing about Elliott. And so I think that's just the mindset of the owners right now. And the only thing that will change it is when the league begins to rely more on the running game as a staple, and you find the need to have a guy who can carry the ball 30 times a game. And I don't think the rules provide for that. I think the rules want you to have someone competent, and then you got to be able to pass the ball. So I think that's just bad news for running backs because people will play for the money that's available. Ultimately, I will never forget when Michael Irvin held out in the early 90s. Emmett's holdout was in 90 for 2 games, and it might have been 93 when Michael tried to hold out of camp. He wanted more money, and ultimately, Jerry said to him, Michael, this is what the job pays. You decide. And so, Nick Chubb and Jacobs and all the Saquon Barkley, certainly, they don't have to like that. And I think everybody listening can relate to if you work for somebody, if you don't work for yourself, and you use comparables of other people who have worked as long as you, or sales figure, whatever it is, and you think you should get more money, ultimately someone is going to say to you, this is what the job pays.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. And that's where running backs are going to get to. And unless they change the rules back to make them less pass-centric, I don't know how that will ever swing back to the pendulum of, believe it or not, just like 7 or 8 years ago.
Thanks a ton, brother. We appreciate it, and we will see you tomorrow in person.
I'll be here. Look forward to seeing you guys.